Hey everybody, it's Craig Syracusa, Walk in Faith. I'm very excited to be sitting down with Tevin Williams, who I know you and I spoke a few weeks ago, and I'm sorry, it took a while for us to connect. But first of all, I want to thank you for being a guest on Walk in Faith, and also you wrote an amazing article for America Magazine, which I want to get into in a minute. But thank you so much, Tevin, for being the guest on the show.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me, Craig.
So, Tevin, you are an extraordinary man. Your background, you wrote a book. You have so much going on at such a young age. But before we get into all that, can you tell us a little bit about your background? Where are you from? A little bit about your history?
Yeah, absolutely. So as you mentioned, my name is Tevin Williams. I'm originally from a small town in South Georgia called Thomasville. It's about 30 minutes away from Tallahassee. I grew up there all of my life up until 18 when I went to undergrad at Valdosta State University, and then furthered my education after 2015, getting a BFA in mass media, and went into an MBA program at Stetson University, which is a small private liberal arts school in DeLand, Florida, about an hour away from Orlando, 20 minutes away from Daytona Beach. Grew up in a very, very devout and religious household. My dad is a Baptist minister, and his dad was a Baptist minister, his mom was a Pentecostal minister, and all of his siblings are involved in the ministry in some way as pastors. And for me, it just kind of was a great thing for a long time, taught me a lot of discipline, and also gave me a lot of the right direction to follow God in life. So I'm very thankful for my upbringing, and now in New York City, only for about a year. And obviously an interesting time to be here, but I'm planning on holding it out for the long run and still learning and growing here in this awesome city.
And you said something interesting. So your whole family was, even your grandmother, right, was a Pentecostal minister. How come you didn't follow
Yeah.
that path? Isn't that something that, they must
Yeah.
have pushed it on you, right, to become a pastor or a minister?
Yeah. Yeah, it was definitely something that as I was kind of about to graduate, my dad and the head deacon were kind of like, we got to start grooming Tevin to get him in place for you to follow behind him. And I was like, this is not my thing. I love God. I love what everything that the church can do for people, but it is just not my calling. And and as much as everyone in my family loves being a minister and a pastor, it is just not my thing. I love being a lay person, love helping in any ministry I can help with, but I definitely think that it was just obviously ultimately pushing me in the path that God wanted for me, which is I ended up converting to Catholicism.
Oh.
So it's very interesting to have those conversations with people that are kind of like, how did you do that? Like your dad was this and your grandparents and all this. But being a minister is just, I don't have the call, and I don't have I guess you could say the requirements to do that role, as much as I do love being around people in the church.
Yeah, I definitely want to get into the fact that you converted to Catholicism, because especially now, like we said off camera, there are a lot of people that are considered nuns, right? Or people that are leaving the church, walking away from the church. And a young man like yourself to decide to, be a part of the Catholic faith, especially I think it was 2019, it says a lot. But tell me, what was it like growing up in Georgia? I grew up in Brooklyn, very different from South Georgia. What was it like for you, especially in reference to being a black man, well-educated, living in South Georgia? What was it like for you, especially attending college in Florida?
Yeah, Thomasville is very much so like a Mayberry. It is from Andy Griffith. It is, everyone knows the sheriff. Everybody knows who everyone is.
Who was
Everyone
the
knows
sheriff?
each other.
Who was the sheriff?
Yeah. Oh my God. Right, right. Everyone knew who his name was and everything. And my dad was like close friends with him. It was a white man. The city was definitely, 60-40, about 60% white, 40% black. And we had good relations, but I have to, be honest, it didn't shield me from racism. It didn't take me away or keep this bubble, because as a kid, I would see the Confederate flag and ask my dad, what does this mean? What does this mean? He's like, well, son, it was a part of history that we were thought to be lesser, and that there was a whole war fought over it. And, although I had good relationships with friends, I had some definite issues in the sense with dating, having much more white people around than black people, and, being in college prep classes, I was one of the only few, when I got to high school, I was one of the only few Black kids in those classes. So obviously when I was wanting to date a girl or, talk to a girl, it would most of the time be white. And so some very interesting experiences happened there. And also going to college, I was there when Kendrick Johnson happened, when this kid was beat up and rolled up into a mat. And there was a alleged cover up, as we all are kind of figuring out now in society, which I kind of knew in college. And seeing Trayvon Martin happen where I was going to graduate school later on in life. So it was definitely an interesting experience being so educated and knowing about these cases and knowing about what was happening. And then kind of, having these experiences as a child, as a Black man, and growing up into being a teenager and young adult in the South, and understanding that, racism is going to be there no matter how nice people are. It's very interesting when you ask those types of questions.
So you mentioned about especially the Confederate flag. So were you sheltered at all from racism? Did you discover racism on your own? I know you mentioned your dad told you a little bit about it, but did you know it existed? And then also too, you mentioned about, I know in the article too, you talk about white birds and black birds. Did you find yourself, because of the percentage 60-40, did you find yourself sort of losing sight of who you are just to fit into a society or fit into an area that was 60-40?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, in the first question you asked, you kind of are shielded and you're not. Like you're given this group of people that you grow up with, and everybody kind of understands who you are, and you have good relationships, but it stops to a certain boundary. And in my article, I spoke about this. I had known this girl, Natalie, since I was a kid. We went to kindergarten, we went to grade school together, elementary, high school. And when I was in 10th grade, I sent her a text message, I really like you, I really want to date you, da 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 da. And she just blatantly told me,
Wow.
white birds should fly with white birds and black birds should fly with black birds. Just no matter, and what that means, and if I can put it into layman's terms, it's like, you are not worthy to date me because of your skin tone. And that is what you kind of have, those small instances in a small town like Thomasville. And when you start to realize that, you kind of think of other memories of what happens, of people getting favorited more in your band class than other people, or people that are almost always going to be in this position in student government because they have more white friends and you have more black friends. Even though you're intermixed in school, you have those instances of like microaggressions and then overt racism of people telling you things like that even when you want to go on a date with a girl. So it gets very interesting in that sense. And you kind of discover it later on in life when you try and go for a job or an interview, and your name that comes up, or people see you. When I was in college, I wanted to get an apartment at one point, and I talked on the phone, and you hear the way I sound, right? I sound like a white boy, an educated kid, right? And some people will tell you when you grow up, or you're called an Oreo. And another instance that happened was, we talked on the phone. They said I sounded good. Let's meet you at the clubhouse. Obviously, that tells you it was a nice place to live. And he walks in and he looks around and he looks at me and he goes, "Are you Tevin?" And I said, "Yeah." He goes, "Man, on the phone, I thought you were a white guy." And, just said that, jokingly, not meaning it in a bad way. Ended up living together, had a great experience. But that is what you have to, in the sense of what you asked, you kind of assimilate into society. You kind of have to navigate your resume, navigate the way you talk and meet people, navigate, when I go on certain job interviews, I put my hair up because I have dreads, all these things you kind of have to do as you work in society and understand who you are as a person, and still be a black man, still be true to who you are and where you grew up in humble beginnings in Georgia. It gets to be sometimes pretty exhausting.
So do you,
so
you have to adjust, so you as a black man have to adjust, like with the music, the way you dress and everything, to sort of assimilate into this culture? So do you lose sight of who you are? Like what do you really like? Are you somewhere in the middle where it's like you might not like rock and roll, but you have to just to fit into a group or a class?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it is very interesting. And let's talk more deeply. Let's get a little bit more personal about like who I am and where I grew up. My mom and dad are corporate HR managers. My dad sits right under the senior vice president for Miller Coolers distribution center in Albany. My mom sits at the same table as the CEO in her company for a gun company in Georgia. My parents worked very hard to get where they were. My mom had a lot better than my dad. She's the baby of the family. My dad's the baby. That's a different story, dealing with two parents who have always got what they wanted. But I can just tell you, you know, we built our house when I was in 6th grade. Like, we bought the land, we were able to have those types of privileges. I wasn't really told no. I wasn't really in those circles of bad influence. My dad was a minister. To that same extent, as a Black man, culturally, I still had that culture of being in the South as a Black man. Now, being in that sense of education, I was one in the number in all of my classes in college, in graduate school. And so you kind of are caught in this hard place of, you know, do I have more white friends now than Black friends? Absolutely. But you have to remember, you know, as a person, who I am culturally and in my heart, comparatively to when I put on the suit every day or go to the YMCA and, you know, have to be around a lot of people that do not look like me. You have to remember that in your heart. And it becomes very difficult sometimes as you kind of say, oh, well, I have my, you know, professional voice. And then, you know, the Tevin that's out, you know, maybe having a drink with a friend in Washington Heights or down in Brooklyn Heights in Brooklyn with some friends. You have to remember who you are a lot of those times. And the assimilation kind of gets to you. And you have to remember to be humble in a lot of instances. Yeah.
So, I mean, growing up in South Georgia, did you ever experience any other forms of racism besides the white bird, black bird incident with Natalie? Which I'm upset with Natalie. We should give Natalie a call, you know, because, you know, the fact that you said that obviously is a problem, and it's the belief system, which is most likely instilled from society or from our parents. But that's an interesting part too.
I think that, like, when I was in South Georgia, the Kendrick Johnson case kind of hit later on in my career, in my undergraduate career. But the Trayvon Martin case, which was in Sanford, Florida, which is literally 20 minutes down the road from where I was getting the MBA, I remember just hearing that and listening to the tapes with my roommate and our friends in our hall, in our residence hall, and you just kind of like sit there and you're like, this is what racism is. Like, and the Kendrick Johnson thing happened the year after. It was like, you can't tell me that a kid goes, oh, I'm going to jump in a cheerleading mat and grab some tennis shoes that I threw over in the mat. And all this stuff start coming out. You know, you see that the CNN released the video and he was followed in by some white kids and the video cut out. And then they opened and did, you know, they opened up, exhumed his body from the ground and found newspapers in his organs. You know, like, you see this and you go, this is what it is in the South. Like, this is the overt racism that you see, that you cannot, as I said in my article, you cannot trust these systems to protect Black people. It is something that, you know, you just start to really understand in life. And those acts right there really opened my eyes as I started to go through life and have conversations with my white friends, and even in graduate school, where it was a little bit more, and I don't want to say the word liberal, but it was a liberal arts school. So my boss was gay, you know, there were a lot more women running the organization and running our school. So it was a little bit different, but still microaggressions. But you have those instances much later on that I had in South Georgia, that you just kind of say, this is real. This is like real life, and you're out of your bubble of protection, and you have to decide how you're going to react to it. Now that you don't have your parents with you, you have to decide what you're going to say to your friends. And those are tough conversations.
I love the fact too that you're having these conversations. I think they're very important, because the way I was brought up, the way you were brought up might be completely different, but the only way we can, you know, we say in church, oh, you're my brother, you're my sister, you know, we're followers of Christ, but yet we find it difficult to have conversations, or I'm able to hold a sign, but what's beneath the surface. The one thing that you wrote in the article, which you talk about two systems, right? So I've never thought about it until recently, that there are two different systems. But do you think there's only two systems, or do you think there are multiple systems? Because I've read studies where, if, let's just say you and I have no prior record, I'm assuming you've never been arrested, right? So we have no prior, right? If you and I commit the same crime in two different areas, will we be judged the same way? You know, are the consequences the same, or are they very different because you're black and I'm white? And the study says that it's not. Like if you and I are both, you know, arrested for, say, paraphernalia, you know, I might go to rehab while you might go to jail for, you know, carrying whatever amount of narcotics. Do you think that's true? Have you experienced that in some of your friends, in some of your relationships, or just growing up in society?
Yeah, absolutely. And there are absolutely more systems. You're right, Craig. There's the criminal justice system, there is the housing system, there is the job system, there is every single aspect of our everyday life. There are two completely different realities for how Americans live, and that is different for white ones and black ones, people of color. And when you start talking about that, the instance that I give is like with Kendrick Johnson. It's like, if this was a white kid, right? If this was a white kid found in a mat, if there would be a full investigation, there would be so many different things that would happen. There would be outrage. And even let's take it a little bit further when we talk about criminal, right? The opioid crisis. That was something that was so big in our country. It was such a big deal, right? Crack has been disproportionately affecting Black communities since the beginning. And then we see, oh, there's this epidemic across America. We have to prosecute these people. We have to get them. Because why? Because those people have access to healthcare, and these doctors are prescribing white people with these opioids that are getting addicted and going crazy. That is the different system that we live in. And so you're right, there are multiple systems in our society in every single aspect of our life. And it will always be one scenario for one people, for the brown people, and it'll be different for white people. And I think people really have to understand that that is what the advocacy comes through when people talk about these issues.
And I agree. So let's agree with that, right? But now, as a white man, just say white people in general, or people in general, I mean, do they deny the fact that there are two systems, or do they like the fact that they have an advantage?
It is literally something that is so, from my and yours, it's so normalized, right? Like I am assimilated into society knowing what the playing field is. And I'll give you two answers to that question because it's really good. I think people really, and this is just a philosophy of mine, I genuinely believe people are good. I think environments change people. In America, we have a system that was built at the table of the democracy that was only one representation, right? And that was white men. And did they have the right? Do I think that they had the meaning of, we want to keep these people down? No, that may be very controversial to some people. I think in that Constitution, we see, we the people of the United States, we always recite that. Everyone talks about that. Congress, everybody, they politicize it. But in those words, you see, this is not just for white people. This is for every single person in America. And so when we ask these questions of, do you think people want the system because they have an advantage? I think that some people do know. I think a lot of powerful, rich people do know they have that advantage. But the everyday American is just like, I just want to live my life. Like I don't really care too much about that. But as a Black person, you see you see what is, and I think to give you a secular name, I don't mean to bring him up, but Kendrick Lamar kind of said, would you rather live in life and see all the opportunities and not have any of the access, or would you rather have the access and never see the opportunities? That is what being white and Black is. Being a Black person, I can see Obama. I can see that it is achievable, but I don't have the financial capital, right? I don't have the job network. I don't have the people to know. Being white, you have the access to whatever you want. You can do whatever because of who you are physically and what you look like. But sometimes they lose track. My white friends lose track of, oh, I can't get this opportunity. It's like some Black people, just because of their name, they will never get into the door. And I think that is the difference. And if we could have those conversations with on a grander scale as a country, a lot of that would change in the sense of that. And it's going to take multiple levels. But I think if we can start there with those conversations of honest conversations that I've been having in my parish, and people understanding, I am, reaching out saying, I am so sorry, this is how you have to live your life. And I want to change whatever I can do to help you feel better and help the greater Black community feel better. So
I agree. And I said this here before, and I just want to say it again. It's really before we demand change, I think we need to look at ourselves and think about our own belief system, what's beneath the surface. And this moment that I try to explain, it's that moment of hesitation, and I don't want to talk about the George Floyd video because, this is more about, but that one moment where I had conversation with people where there was the moment where they saw the video and that slight moment of hesitation where they said, he must have done something. He must have done something.
Yeah.
That moment of hesitation, that's where the problem lies. It's beneath that surface where we have to ask ourselves the question, am I racist? What's my belief system? And then we have to make a change. And you wrote in the article too, and what I love is that the church in general, right? I've seen, in the past, I think you wrote the article almost a month ago, but I've seen some, clergy. I've seen some people. I know a friend of mine did a lot of rallies in the city, a lot of Christian rallies. But have you seen the church during this time step up? Have they made public statements? What have you seen on a parish level? But also, I know you asked the Pope actually to say something. What have you seen? Has anything changed in the past month?
Yeah, I mean, it's good, and then also like it's not enough. Like that's what got me to write that article and submit it to America was like, yeah, I'm glad the USCCB has said, we're going to step up to the plate. We're going to do this as an American country of Catholics. But I think, to me, as someone that is an educated man speaking to another educated man, if you are the biggest sect of Christianity globally, right? Like you have the opportunity, what I said in my article, to make a bold chance and statement on how we handle this issue. Because it's everywhere. It's not just in America. It's in Italy, it's in France, it's every single country in this country deals with racism in some shape or form. It may be not founded like America was. We could do that. And to me, it's like the greater church, it hasn't done enough still. I wrote that article a month ago and I've talked with people in clergy and stuff. And it's just like, someone needs to let Pope Francis read this. And then like, we should have a conversation because then it will be like oh, I don't know. And I don't know how far I can go with this, but like, I really just want to say this to Cardinal Dolan if it gets to him. Like, I was very taken back by like what he said in the Wall Street Journal, like about the Confederate statues, like was just kind of saying, I get it, I understand, but they still need to kind of be up because it's history. Like, and that is the problem with our church, right? Is there are some leaders that are talking to me, you're talking to me, my parish is talking to me. But I believe that people like Cardinal Dolan, they go, oh, let me talk to the police chief. Hey, white man, what do you think about the Confederate statues? Oh, you agree that they should stay? Okay. Then you go to another friend that is not Black or, not of color or not this. And you just kind of have this circle. And that is the issue with our parish, and not in our parish, as our church as a whole, is we are doing certain things which are great, but we are not making the steps that need to be addressed in this. It's cute to say, I got an email, what was it this morning? Well, Black Catholics are the highest in attendance mass. Okay, cute. That means they're going to church. What are you doing to help them feel more safe? What are we doing on these commissions that I'm on a commission for racism in the Catholic school system in Brooklyn and Queens? I told them straight up, look, what is the action plan? Because I'm not going to keep having these conversations if nothing is going to get done. There's just no reason that a kid has to go to school and a teacher says something racist to them and they have to deal with it. So I think that overall it's, C minus, right? Like I would give them a grade right now, C minus. They can do better. We can do better. Pope Francis can do better. He's an amazing advocate for our church. And I think that he can definitely speak out a lot more.
So what are some of the things, and I agree, within the church, I know myself, I've been on a lot of committees and meetings, and they're circles. Nothing actually gets accomplished. We spoke the other day how the church thinks in centuries, and I know for most of us, we will not be here for that long, so we need things to get done now. So I've also had conversations with other priests in other states, and I said, what could we do? And he said, it starts with the grassroots. So what are some of the things that you and I can do? I think, I'm going to just interrupt you, actually, because I do talk a lot. But a couple of things that we could do, and I want to hear from you, is social media, right? Social media
Mm-hmm.
is a platform that we could all use to spread the word of God, give your testimony, say positive things. I get the cat videos and all that, but it can be used as a platform, and I don't think it's being used the right way. So
Mm-hmm.
that's one thing, right? Conversations like this, conversations with friends, just sit and listen, right? Be still and know that I am God. So those are two basic things. What can we do, Tevin? Tell me some of the things. I know you wrote articles, but what could we do? What could I do today?
Yeah, I mean, if we could have again those conversations with everyday people that are, and honestly, even more so, a subcategory of those conversations, talk to the people that overtly say they don't get it or they don't agree with the movement that's going on. Th- those are the hearts you need to pierce to say, this is what you need to understand. I can sit down and tell you, as a Black man, if I am driving around at night in my car, I do not have faith that the police will let me get home alive. If anyone can tell me that that does not penetrate your heart, you are crazy. I don't know anyone that I've told that to that's been like, what?
I,
Oh,
I,
that's not true.
I
Like,
can't. I don't even know how to respond to that because, like, I don't.
yeah.
That's I never. I see cops and I drive home and I have no issues. I mean, it's a
Hmm.
completely different realm. Like that to me is heartbreaking.
Hmm. Exactly. So that one right there, and if we're really going to go there with the greater church or the USCCB, make a commission, but have a directive, just like I'm doing right now with the school systems in Brooklyn and Queens. It is mandated by the bishop, and he has said, this is what I need to know once all this has been convened. This. These are the check boxes that need to be checked, and this is how we're going to handle this. If we can do that, not only at the USCCB level, but also the greater Catholic Church globally, I think that would solve a lot of problems. You can sit there and hold people accountable saying, these are the directives that we have. This is what we will not tolerate. If you do not do this, if you need to understand, if you would like education on this issue, this is what we have. This is the commission that you go to, and this is their job. I think that would change a lot of things. I'm a big person on that, of having a complete list of what you want to accomplish in that sense. If we can do that, I think a lot of those things can happen. And also, again, like it is what it is to a certain extent. Like it is a piece of just like, there is a certain mindset in our hierarchy in the church that is just lived for so long, and rightfully so. I have nothing against people that are older, but there's a certain mindset of like, it's kind of been this way for so long. What more do you want to do about it? You need some fresh blood to speak in these conversations. And I appreciate this platform that you've given me. You need some younger Catholics that are, involved in the church, that are going to be on these commissions and these boards or whatever else, to kind of voice like, this is what's going on right now. Because again, if you have the same circle of friends that are all 65 plus, what really are you accomplishing? You're just going to be like, oh yeah, well, I agree with you. You need some differing opinions on these issues. So I hope that those are the two things that really happen. And I think that that's what we can do every day, to start those conversations and have those things put into clause. So.
Well, I hope Pope Francis reaches out to you. I really do. I mean, and maybe this is something you could create on your own. Maybe it's something, a movement that you could start, because I guarantee there are a lot of people, I mean, I'm one of them, that support you and support the movement, want to see equality, want to see unity. This is not just a gimmick for me, and I know it's not for you. I'm a true believer in Christ. I want equality. I want unity. I want us all to be brothers and sisters. I don't just speak the words and then, do something else on the weekend. This is me. I'm committed. You're committed. I think maybe the priest that I spoke to is right. It needs to start grassroots, because you're right. A lot of the priests, the 65, the clergy, they'll meet with you. You'll have the free donuts and the coffee, but nothing's getting done. They're 1 foot towards retirement. They don't want change. They don't want, controversy. I've heard it all. But we still have a long time to go, and I want to see the church flourish. I want to see us all be believers and true believers in Christ. I don't want to see it just end because, just the communication isn't there. So, Tevin, if there's one more thing you could add before we end this interview, what is the one thing you want people to walk away with after this wonderful, fantastic, eye-opening, and inspiring interview? What would it be, Tevin?
Yeah. There are people in the church that believe this movement, that believe in Christ and want to see everybody just like you, Craig, that want to see the church flourish. And I am one of them as well, as you mentioned, but they don't know what to do. They don't have direction. They don't have the people that will back them up, that are maybe in a hierarchy or a very pivotal position in the church. And I say to you, it can be you too. It can be you. I did not come to New York City to join a church and start talking about racism. I did not do that at all. I literally was so upset of what is going on in our current climate in America. And I went to our priest along with another parishioner named Josephine Dong Bang, and just said, what are we going to do about this? How are we at our church, are we going to say, at our parish, are we going to say, we need to have these conversations to start having these things? And I'm telling you, you can be that person too. If it's a priest, if it's a bishop, if it's a cardinal, you have to be willing to do what Christ called us to do, which is be uncomfortable and be an advocate for everyone. That is what Christ wants us to be. I'm a firm believer in that. I didn't think that was something that would happen in the midst of a global pandemic, but I want to tell anyone that watches this, anyone that hears that, Christ is with you. Christ wants you to speak out, to be an advocate for every single person. That is what our faith is to welcome the poor, the hungry, clothe the naked, do these things for people. And right now we're seeing there is a certain demographic of people that really need help. And it's going to take a lot of people to get on board and support this. And you can be one of them. You can easily be one of them, because Christ has used the least of people to do his work. And I am thankful that I can do a small piece of that. So I hope everyone takes that away from this interview.
Amen to that. You're right. Like we said off camera, God used the prostitute, the banker. I mean, the worst of the worst, right? Paul was horrible. I mean, so whenever we're sitting there saying, well, Moses, I mean, they weren't perfect men, so if you're sitting there questioning, saying, well, I'm not called, I'm not good enough, I have a stutter, I have a past, just look who Christ chose to be his disciples, and look what they were able to accomplish. So don't use that as an excuse. I think what we should all do this weekend is just write something on social media, do something, just speak to your priest, just create the conversation, because I think, like you said, the grassroots, but also the church needs to come together, because we have the ability to demand change. And I think we need to start in our own parishes. I really do.
Agreed. Thank you so much, Craig.
Tevin, it's been my pleasure. I hope everyone can find the article. The name of the article, Tevin, if you have a handle or any way that people can get in contact with you, support the movement, can you please share that with us before we go?
Yeah. You can follow me on any social media, on Instagram, Twitter. It is at the Tev, my first three letters of my name, Tev Williams. So you can follow me on Instagram. You can follow me on Twitter. I'm also on Facebook, if we're that close. But I'm a pretty open person, so none of my accounts are private. You're more than welcome to follow and just see as I speak my mind and speak the truth. So
it's been great. Thank you, Tevin. I really appreciate it. Guys, I will also post the article on America Magazine, which we love America Magazine. Guys, I hope you enjoyed today's episode. Always remember, you have the ability to inspire and evangelize through your words and actions. God bless you, Tevin. Have a wonderful weekend.
Thank you. You too.